On this episode of Clear the Air,
I think that the ADA needs to unhook itself from the fluoride wagon. And fluoride might be a tool that the dental professionals can use, but it shouldn't be the only tool. And in essence, really what they're doing is they're saying it's the only tool.
And they feel like they have an effective toothpaste, not considering everything else there.
Okay, so you're saying that's how someone feels like they have an effective toothpaste.
Right, the bubbling effect.
Yeah.
And then the minty fresh afterwards.
There's two things that have done more to drive up the rate of tooth decay than anything else. And this is what some of these pediatric dentists tell me. You know what the number one is?
No.
Sipping cups.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Clear the Air podcast. I'm Nate Jones, and I'm here with our co-host, Joel Melton.
Hello, everybody.
You know, today we're going to talk about something that I find very interesting, and I've found it interesting for the last 25 years. Before that, I didn't think anything about it. But when we go to the grocery store or the pharmacy to get toothpaste, what are you looking for? Joel, tell me what you're looking for.
Well, I know when I get there, it's a full wall of toothpaste, and so it's pretty hard to really dial in, but I want to find something. I like things more simple. I don't care for all the additional items in there, so something that is just going to give me a good teeth cleaning.
That's it?
Yeah, I don't want any whitening in toothpaste.
I'm just going in and see that's when I go in, I'm looking for what's going to do the best job. Okay? And you know the best one that I always hear is I just go in, I get what I've been using for 25 years, 30 years. My favorite one though is I just go in, I get whatever's the cheapest. And, you know, what's cheapest? I mean, do you go out and buy the cheapest car on the market that you can find? Or do you look for one that, you know, gets you there safely? Or do you look for one that gets you there in style or comfort or...
Yeah, certainly with toothpaste, there's a distinct relevance between cheapest and quality.
There is, and I fully agree with that. And one of the things that I, want to make sure that people understand is that not all of the ingredients in toothpaste are good for you. In fact, there's a lot of them that are not good for you. I mean, there's fads that come and go. They talk about them. But one of the things that's in a lot of toothpaste that I'm actually just incredibly surprised that anybody still uses it is sorbitol. Sorbitol is a sugar alcohol, and they use it in oral care products. They have for decades. And the reason is that the strep mutans bacteria in your mouth, when they metabolize it, they don't create acid, and so it's considered non-cariogenic. But the problem with that is they still metabolize it. So you're still feeding the bacteria that cause tooth decay.
So they lay in wait. They're not dying off or being pushed out.
Correct. That's exactly correct. And so really what you're doing is you're feeding the pathogenic bacteria in your mouth, and by feeding it, you're helping it to stay strong and hang out. Again, it's not creating acid, so it's better than eating sucrose or glucose. But they've known for 50 years that you could use xylitol or erythritol. There's other things that you can use that don't feed that bacteria.
So why do you think, with those fads, why won't they change? Is it just easier to keep on making it, you think?
I think it's easier to keep on making it, and the cost of sorbitol is a fraction of what the cost of xylitol is. And if you're making that much toothpaste, or they use it in a lot of sugar-free chewing gums also. But if you're making that quantity of it, it would significantly,
Sure.
increase your costs if you're using a xylitol instead of sorbitol.
So there's justification then for using it because it doesn't create the tooth decay like others do, in that it feeds them, but it doesn't cause the acid. So they can keep using it and maybe feel good about it, as opposed to going to something a little more expensive that does not feed the strep mutans.
Yeah. But that goes back, and I think we mentioned and discussed this, but that goes back to, are you going to look at caries? Because the whole point of brushing your teeth is to, prevent you from getting caries. But if you're going to look at caries as a structural issue, then all you're going to do is fluoride, and that's what you're going to focus on. If you're looking at it as the bacterial infection that it is, then using a sorbitol toothpaste is not addressing that bacterial infection. That's actually like saying, hey, you know what? I got a big gash on my arm. Let's not do anything for it. Let's keep the bacteria. Let's not bandage it. Let's not keep it clean. Let's not get rid of the bacteria. Let's just let it go and get gangrenous or something.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point, and I think you use this example often, and maybe you used it in other episodes or will, but about the castle with defending the front with something that stops the bacteria, and then what like a fluoride would do in rebuilding that. Can you tell us that example?
Yeah, so that example, for anybody that hasn't heard it, is oral care. If you think of your tooth as a castle sitting up there on a hill, and you want that castle to be well defended, you want it to be strong so it can do its job, and then you have this army of bacteria that's down here around the outside, and they're using their catapults and their trebuchets, and they're shooting up these acid bombs up to your teeth. That's really what causes cavities. It's the bacteria eating sugar, creating acid, and that acid is what dissolves the enamel of your teeth. And utilizing fluoride, and only fluoride, all you're really doing is helping that enamel to be stronger. That's like having a mason go out and work on rebuilding the castle wall in the middle of a battle, as opposed to getting rid of the invading army of bacteria. And so really what you want to do is you want to utilize something like xylitol or erythritol, or something that is going to that's addressing the bacterial infection, get rid of the bacterial infection, and then your teeth are going to naturally remineralize. There's a photo out there of one of the teeth of one of the participants in the belly sugar studies, I believe, where half of the molar is rotted away. And when they started utilizing the xylitol gum, getting rid of the strep mutans, the acid-creating bacteria, the tooth started remineralizing on its own. But if you look real closely at the picture, you can actually see where they took a scaler, the little prongy thing that the dentist used, and scratched it. And you could see how the enamel was coming back.
So like a lot of things, there's a tendency even for your own body to reproduce what it needs in the enamel if you get rid of what's stopping that, like the strep mutans. So sucralose is maybe not totally dangerous, but it leaves your teeth open to something afterwards. Or sorbitol, sorry. Then there's sucralose and others that do create the acid.
Well, sucralose is just a chemical. Sucralose is an artificial sweetener like aspartame, and I don't believe there's any data showing that it feeds bacteria. But I don't know that they use that. I mean, they might use it in toothpaste. I haven't.
So yeah, sorbitol I see often.
I haven't used a non-xylitol, non-Sprite toothpaste in decades.
Yeah.
And so I haven't really looked in the ingredients. Maybe I need to go look at the ingredients and see what they're doing. I mean, other ingredients that you see all the time that really scare the bejesus out of me is things like charcoal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've talked and seen about the charcoal, and that's one of the scary things is it's used mainly for whitening. But as you talk to the dental care professionals, healthcare professionals, they say it does more harm trying to scrub that charcoal off of your teeth than the whitening benefit from it.
Well, there's a lot of products out there that, I mean, with the way the charcoal works at whitening your teeth is it actually is just more abrasive than most companies use a hydrated silica. And hydrated silica, I'm not even sure, it sounds like sand, but it's not. It's, I mean, a big bag of it only weighs, it's fairly light. I don't know how much it weighs, but a big bag. And you actually have to use vacuums when you're making it because it's so light that it
just flies away.
Yeah, it flies away, and it gets all over in the air. And so you actually have to use vacuum mixers when you're mixing toothpaste. Maybe we should do an episode where we show people how you make toothpaste.
Yeah.
But anyways, you actually have to use vacuums to suck the air and hold that down so it doesn't get mixed up. But the charcoal, it actually just makes your toothpaste abrasive. And so really, it's not that they're whitening it. It's just you're taking some sandpaper and buffing off that outer layer of stains. And that's usually not very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So sorbitol is one that leaves it. What about SLS?
Sodium lauryl sulfate is a detergent. It's a chemical detergent. Some people have a reaction to it. Some people don't. We don't use it. We use a a natural cousin of it, which is sodium lauryl sarcosinate. And if you take coconut milk and shake it all up, it gets all frothy. And both of those are ingredients that in a toothpaste you truly don't need them to be in there, because all they do is make it the bubbly and the foaming. But that's the mouth feel that people want to have. That's what they've become accustomed to having. And when we first started making toothpaste, we actually had some that didn't foam, thinking, well, people don't want ingredients that don't have an actual function that's important for the goal. And, well, we were wrong. You don't need your toothpaste to foam. It's just that's what people expect. And, our toothpaste didn't start selling until we had it so it foamed right. And the foaming really has nothing to do with the efficacy of the product.
Yeah, I think that there are several studies or references to even market research that says those who look at a toothpaste and find the most effective are the ones that bubble, or they get kind of bubbly in there, and then the minty fresh taste afterwards, which theoretically is just kind of numbing the tongue for the 10 or 15 seconds. They rub it across their teeth with that bubbling feeling, and they feel like they have an effective toothpaste, not considering everything else there.
Okay, so you're saying that's how someone feels like they have an effective toothpaste.
Right, the bubbling effect.
Yeah.
And then the minty fresh afterwards.
Correct. And both of those really have nothing to do with an effective toothpaste. The minty, like you said, it kind of numbs your teeth. In fact, Trish O'Hare, who is a very well-known dental hygienist, she actually recommends that you do what's called dry brushing once a day, either in the evening or in the morning. But that's where you don't use toothpaste at all, and you just use a toothbrush, and brush your teeth. You feel with your tongue, you feel when you have plaque and your teeth aren't clean, and you can tell when they're clean. And she actually recommends that you do that once a day without any toothpaste.
Yeah.
Keep buying our toothpaste. Don't do. No, I'm kidding.
Well, and she's even said, I've heard her say, Trisha's even said, start with dry brushing so you can get back into the inside of your molars with dry brushing, and you're not sticking product in there, and then put the toothpaste on and to get the rest of it, so you get that other feeling and you get that clean feeling that you desire. But yeah, I think that's the key here. So sodium lauryl sulfate is really the surfactant or the soapiness of a toothpaste that makes it bubble. So there are some that don't use it at all, some that use it still because it's been in their formulation forever. But we use something different in Spry toothpaste, a cousin to it.
Yep.
So let's talk about the strep mutans, though. You talked about it before, and that's has several synonyms, right? The strep mutans are karyogenic acid, or is that what it becomes?
Acidogenic or karyogenic. Karyogenic means they cause caries. Acidogenic means they create acid. We sit there and, I tell my kids, this is, you feed the sugar bugs and they poop out acid. They eat sugar and they poop out acid. You don't want sugar bug poop all over your mouth? Well, then go brush your teeth.
Right.
And so they go brush their teeth. But that's what, those are the two terms, I think.
Yeah, so brushing your teeth morning and night is really all that's needed. Dental professionals as well, morning and night. Often I hear people who will brush throughout the day, but then they're also bringing that abrasiveness back to their enamel.
I think most dentists would agree. And again, I'm not a dentist, but I have read a lot of dental journals and a lot of stuff on oral hygiene. But I think that brushing your teeth more frequently than twice a day is normally going to do more harm, because you are, even as if you're using a soft head toothbrush, you are brushing off the enamel, and you got to give your mouth a chance to bring that back to neutral before you brush your teeth. I think dental hygiene, and I know that I've mentioned this before, but hygiene is an act of cleanliness with the intent to improve a health outcome, and that's what dental hygiene is all about. And we don't really talk about it that much in oral hygiene. I mean, I talk about it a little bit in hygiene, but nobody else really talks about it. But what you need to do in your mouth is, again, a state of eubiosis. You want to make sure that you have a state of eubiosis in your mouth, and the best way to do that is to utilize polyols like xylitol and erythritol in order to get the bacteria, to get the commensals, just as the good bacteria as good as the bad bacteria bring the good bacteria up and the bad bacteria down and help get that state of balance.
So there's some nuances to sugar. It isn't the sugar necessarily that's causing cavities. It's any sugar that continues to feed the acid, the strep mutans, that can cause cavities. So it could be a handful of goldfish crackers that's got a lot of carbs in it, and that could be feeding it, or a burrito or something.
Yeah, that's I've worked with a lot of pediatric dentists, and I don't know if I want to call out one brand, but let's say fish crackers. There's two things that have done more to drive up the rate of tooth decay than anything else, and this is what some of these pediatric dentists tell me. You know what the number one is?
No.
Take a guess. What do you think is the number one thing that has driven up the incidence of tooth decay in kids?
Juice. Sweetened juice.
Close. You're close.
Soda?
No.
Milk?
No. All of those tie into it.
I don't know.
Sippy cups.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
So what?
Because what happens now is kids walk around with sugary juice, sugary milk, because milk is sugar too, with soda, with all these other things, and they're sipping on it constantly. Constantly. They put the cup down, they come back to it 20 minutes later, and their teeth, their mouth never has a chance to get back to a neutral pH because they're constantly putting that sugar into it. And you should never, ever put anything into a sippy cup except for water. Nothing else should ever be put in a sippy cup. Not apple juice, not orange juice, not soda pop, water.
So that's similar to like hard candies. They're just sitting in your mouth the whole time and just feeding and never giving your mouth a chance for rest. It's just constantly on high alert.
Correct.
So
and the number two thing was actually crackers.
Crackers.
Everybody's giving their. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't remember when I was a baby. Obviously, I can't imagine my mom just left her other 6 children and came over and fed me crackers all day long. In fact, I think she just, dropped me on the floor and yelled at one of the other kids and told me to go put me outside in the dirt and let me play.
Eat some icing.
I'm kidding. That was later in life. But anyways, so those are the two things that the pediatric dentists that we've worked with have said have driven up the incidence of tooth decay in children. So please, don't give your kids crackers all the time, and don't put anything except for water in a sippy cup. They can drink the juice. They can drink in a cup. They sit there and they drink it for a couple of minutes, and then they take off running, and you dump it down the sink. They don't get the rest of it. They have it one time, and their body, their mouth actually gets back to neutral pH, and it's good to go.
Yeah, so the crackers and those foods aren't necessarily bad, just not throughout the day, not let them continue to graze on it. Give them some, let it go, let the mouth have a chance to remineralize or to get back into the state of eubiosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to get it back into a state of balance.
Balance there, and eating those crackers throughout the day just keeps on feeding and makes them more susceptible. As we say, cavities can be created all day, so you need to find something to do, either stop that feeding it or find some other way. So if we look at our toothpaste, ours being Spry had an original formulation, right? And
we've had a couple of formulation changes.
So I've only known the latest one, which has some ingredients, but what was the thought process, or when you originally developed the Spry toothpaste?
Well, when 25 years ago, when we first started selling toothpaste, we actually just had a co-packer just make a toothpaste for us that we put on the market, and it had some ingredients in it that we didn't like that much, but we didn't know how to make toothpaste ourselves, and the toothpaste manufacturer that was making it for us didn't want to change their formula. There's a whole reason why they didn't want to change their formula, because you have to go through a lot of steps to get a formula approved, and it's not cheap. And so we were a small company. They didn't want to, they weren't going to go out and make a toothpaste just for us. And so it wasn't for another 10 years that we actually came up with our own formula, and that's where we took out the sodium lauryl sulfate and started using sodium lauryl sarcosinate, which is the coconut stuff. Some of the other things that we added to it, we added calcium glycerophosphate, which is a form of calcium that's more readily absorbed into your enamel from your saliva, and it helped get the pH back to neutral faster. And then in this latest iteration, which we changed the formula, I want to say 2 years ago now, Has it been 2 years already?
Yes.
We actually added arginine and trimetaphosphate, and I'm trying to remember what else. There was something else we added. But the trimetaphosphate actually worked to get the enamel stronger, almost 35% stronger than what fluoride toothpaste alone was doing. And not only did it make it stronger, but it also made it so that the hardness of it went deeper. And, if you go look at x-rays of teeth where they're just using fluoride, the fluoride doesn't get deep into the enamel, and so it remineralizes the outer edge of the enamel and makes it hard, but it's kind of like an eggshell. And so you want to do stuff that gets it harder, deeper into the enamel, and the trimetaphosphate does that.
So we have options both with fluoride and non-fluoride because there's still two different camps, I guess, of thought of people that like to still use the fluoride. Even with the trimetaphosphate, I picture those as vehicles to take the minerals to your teeth and drop them off and help that. So the trimetaphosphate is what you're saying is that will help that remineralization go to a deeper level than fluoride alone.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's really one of the keys. And then the arginine is another ingredient that I think has two functions, if I understand it correctly. The first one is that it helps produce or create the saliva, which is a natural protectant anyway. But also there's a element of sensitivity protection in the tubules of the tooth.
And it helps bring the pH back. It also helps bring the pH up.
Yeah, so if you're getting that to a normal level, that's one of the benefits of using the toothpaste with the L-arginine, which is basically a natural product that's put in there. And then the STMP is really that vehicle as well that's helping to harden the enamel, which is what you want in your example of the castle. Keep something out front like xylitol, who's defending the attacks, and then have something in the background rebuilding, right?
Correct.
So what do you think about some of the other ingredients out there, or do you have any experience like, erythritol may be used in different things. You mentioned that earlier, that if that's used as a sweetener, it's similar to xylitol.
So the research with xylitol goes back, and I think I mentioned this, 55 years now. And so there's a lot more studies done with xylitol than there is with erythritol, but the body of evidence with erythritol is growing, and we think that there's enough evidence to start saying, do we use it? I don't think we use it. Do we have it in our toothpaste? I think we have it. We might have it in some of it, but you can't make any claims for it, and there's not enough studies yet, but there's enough studies to where we think that it's going to have very similar benefits like xylitol, but we're still working on getting more of the research done.
So what about colors? I think everyone, I remember growing up and we had, the toothpaste that had the 3 different colors in it, or it was just a white color or something, and that's not what's natural. What are your thoughts on that?
Entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
You get a colored toothpaste to, entice your young children. You can see, it's like a fire truck. There's no purpose for the colors.
Yeah.
Other than to make it look pretty.
Right.
Even toothpaste now, you use titanium dioxide to make it white, and we've actually explored pulling that out. But what happens is people come in and say, well, if it's not brilliantly white, I don't want to buy it because I want my teeth to be brilliantly white, which I don't understand. They just went down and bought some charcoal toothpaste. So that's the opposite of white. But we've run into that where we took the titanium dioxide out. And there's some negative press out there about titanium dioxide if you breathe it in. But if it's in toothpaste, hopefully you're not breathing it in. If you are, you've got bigger issues.
Yeah, right. So that's really the key here. Consumer perspective, right? The consumer looks at it, and if the toothpaste isn't white, they think it's going to somehow transfer to their teeth, right?
So everybody that used charcoal toothpaste, your teeth are black now.
Right.
One of the things that I think that we could do a lot better with in it is we probably should just have a whole episode on fluoride. I'm trying to think of how to bring that whole fluoride conversation down into a 1-minute episode here, but I think fluoride and the pluses and minuses of it, that's probably a 5-episode spread over a year. I mean, they've been working on that for 100 years now. And, some people like it and some people don't.
Yeah, so the opponents of it are pretty adamant about it, talking about it being a toxic chemical. And I think there's some 70% of the U.S. that has fluoridated water, right? So there's a lot of states that have implemented it into their water. Oftentimes, when my kids were younger, they would go to the dentist and they would always offer to put fluoride treatment on them after they were done, and always add that addition. So there is camps on both ways. Some that don't want it at all and are totally opposed, and those who are proponents of it and think that it should be in there. I think there's valid reasons for both.
I think there's valid reasons for both, but what I will say, in my humble opinion, of a quarter of a century of expertise and learning in this field, I think that the ADA needs to unhook itself from the fluoride wagon. And fluoride might be a tool that the dental professionals can use, but it shouldn't be the only tool. Yeah. And in essence, really what they're doing is they're saying it's the only tool. I mean, it used to be that you would use fluoride in your toothpaste. Then it was fluoride in your toothpaste and your water. Well, that obviously didn't work because we still kept getting cavities. So now you got to go get fluoride varnishes. It still isn't working. So now what are they saying? Prescription fluoride toothpaste. Now what are they doing? Oh, fluoride tablets. And they're doubling and tripling down on this. And, we don't have to get into this. We could have a whole other episode on this. But there's reasons why it doesn't work. And if you don't balance, if you don't have a state of eubiosis in your mouth, I don't care how much fluoride you use, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's something important to consider because, as you mentioned, if that's what is with the ADA and has been so long, they certainly haven't opened it up, if that being the only tool, to the advances or better understanding of what other products can help defend against that the state of creating the acid. And I think that's one thing to look at, because I know as an uneducated consumer, just hearing fluoride, you think that's going to stop cavities. It really isn't stopping cavities. It's really just attempting to rebuild the enamel coating.
Correct.
Yeah. So considering toothpaste, I think, there's probably a list of things that consumers look at. Number one, which is interesting because you mentioned you could just dry brush, but number one, probably high on the list is taste. They look for what's it going to taste like. Another is often they'll brush, hopefully just twice a day, but they're brushing to eliminate bad breath. Then a lot of them now have whitening components in them, and sometimes those are dangerous, especially dangerous meaning not that they're going to die from it, but it's maybe doing more harm to their teeth or not doing anything well.
I want to point something out is that, it was after all of these whitening toothpaste started coming out, and, I don't know if correlation is causation, but I'd hazard a guess that it does here. But after you start getting all of these toothpaste coming out, these whitening toothpaste, you start getting all of these people now who have sensitive teeth. I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't know. I mean, did you know anybody that had sensitive teeth?
Nope.
But now everybody has sensitive teeth. The number one selling toothpaste on the market is for sensitive teeth. I'm not going to mention any brands, Sensodyne. But, something in their TV ads that I find incredibly funny, offensive. I mean, I think apparently they think we're all dumb, but they sit there and they tell us in their ad, they're like, you only have your enamel once, and once it's gone, it's gone. And then the very next line is, but use Sensodyne to help you remineralize your enamel. And I'm like, didn't you just finish telling us that once it's gone, it's gone? And now you're telling me that your toothpaste can... Okay? I just believe that we need to dispel the idea, the false idea, that your enamel is, once it's gone, it's gone. Your enamel is constantly hardening and softening on a daily basis, almost on an hourly basis. After you eat acidic food, it's going to become a tiny bit softer, and it's going to decay a little bit. But as your mouth comes back to a neutral pH, it's going to remineralize. And if you're using calcium glycerophosphate, if you're using hydroxyapatite, if you're using trimetaphosphate, it's actually going to be built back stronger, than it was before. I mean, that's the working theory right now. We just need to dispel that. And if somebody's sitting there telling you, once your enamel's gone, it's gone, then that tells you that they're either way behind the times in science and understanding of what's going on, or they're just lying to you.
Yeah, so I think you used an example earlier. You can't keep on beating up the enamel and expecting it to just fight back harder. But if you stop the behavior that's doing that, like you said, dispel the belief that enamel's gone when it's gone. You can there are methods to help rebuild and do that. For example, and not to be a commercial for another product, but we have gum and mints in our spry line.
Yeah.
That's intended to eat or chew after you've had a meal with sugar in it.
Yeah. And that is to bring your mouth. That's to bring your mouth back to a neutral balance. It's also to help get rid of the sugars in your mouth, because if you let's say you go eat a donut. Not that I eat donuts, but if you're going to eat a donut, you have a lot of sugar in your mouth. You chew a piece of gum, that sugar gets washed out in the saliva a lot quicker, and so really that's what the goal with chewing the gum is. And you're feeding that bacteria, you're feeding it xylitol, which again is going to get rid of some of that carcinogenic bacteria. So you're looking at, again, changing the microbiome. You're addressing the bacterial infection, the bacteria that are creating the acid.
So it's really understanding the process. It doesn't have to be so boring that we can't have any sugar, we can't have any treats, we can't do anything. But you need to understand what's happening and what those are causing in your mouth, and then take appropriate measures after to help rebuild or remineralize the enamel. And it isn't so strict that, hey, we can't do this, but watch out and be aware of it. Good discussion. I've got one final question. Having been in the industry for as long as you have and manufacturing toothpaste and being around that and understanding it as well as you do, what's the most frustrating thing you see in the oral health industry when it comes to toothpaste?
The most frustrating thing I see is that dentists and even hygienists, but hygienists to a much lesser extent because they're more involved in the hygiene aspect of it, but it is that they've hung their hat so much on fluoride toothpaste that they're not looking, they're not seeing the forest for the trees, I guess. They're focusing on one thing. And they sit there and they talk about brushing and flossing, but they never, I shouldn't say never, that's a big word. They don't talk about tooth decay as the bacterial infection it is, and they don't treat it as the bacterial infection that it is. Mm. And, and if we could get our dental professionals to start discussing it with their patients as a bacterial infection, I think the patients would actually pay better attention to it. And they would actually, if someone comes in and says, yeah, you have strep throat, you're like, ooh, what do I got to do? Well, okay, you have a strep mutans infection. Okay, what is that? Well, it's what's causing you to have tooth decay. Okay, well, if I have a strep mutans infection in my mouth, what do I need to do to get rid of it? Well, go chew some xylitol gum. I think you would have a lot better response. And I think that the other frustration that I have is that people in the dentistry, in the oral health field, they don't speak up loud enough when it comes to issues of public health. I really wish that the dental industry, the dentists and the hygienists, that when our federal government, our public health agencies like the CDC, the Surgeon General, the state level public health officials, I truly wish that they were pushing harder to get more of an effort to help kids, especially kids. And we'll have stories about this later because I have some there. They just make you want to cry how bad public health is cheating our children. But they've got to stand up more. And I think that the amount of effort and money spent by public health on oral hygiene initiatives, on upper respiratory hygiene, oral and nasal hygiene, I think the amount of money that they spend and the efforts that they put into those efforts or to that small area should be as much as all the other money that they spend on public health. Because the vast majority of our illnesses start in our mouth and in our nose. And so oral hygiene, nasal hygiene are two important things. And it's really frustrating that the dentists, don't stand up and fight to have dentistry heard. It's, it's like a lot of them just say, well, I'm just going to go to the office today and drill out 50 teeth and throw some amalgam or some porcelain in there and come home and go hang out with the family. I think they've got to stand up and fight harder for the benefit of America. And the other one is that they need to start talking about tooth decay as the bacterial infection that it is.
So it sounds like maybe currently a path of maybe allopathic or treating the symptom right now. They're treating the symptom because they see some decay. And what would probably be better is they might have a more holistic or osteopathic, looking at everything that's causing that. Their eating behavior, their times of brushing, and maybe some of that, but I can see why you say that hygienists would be more like, because they spend the time sitting there when they're doing a cleaning as opposed to changing or doing a filling and then moving on to the other patient. But I think that's really the key is maybe having more awareness and that full picture. And I think there's some out there. There's holistic dentists and there's others who are moving towards that. But as a whole, you're right. Most of them are looking to treat the symptom and move on, knowing that you'll be back with the next cavity.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that, I know there's good doctors out there and there's good dentists out there that take the time to go and learn, and they do talk to their patients. We work with a lot of great dentists who do actually acknowledge and they discuss with their patients that tooth decay is a bacterial infection. So I don't want, if the shoe fits, wear it, and then change your shoes so that you're actually doing the right thing. I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's another episode of Clear the Air, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
This episode of Clear the Air was hosted by Nate Jones, co-hosted by Joel Melton, produced by David Monk, associate producer Matthew Davis. Video and audio were edited by Caleb Scoresby. Research by Sabre Bills. Music by Augusto Diniz. If you enjoyed this episode of Clear the Air, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episode. Have a favorite episode? Share it with a friend. New episodes of Clear the Air are published weekly on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.